Well, I look around the audience and I know the majority of the folks in here appreciate you being here this morning, giving up your time on a Saturday morning. We're in deer season, and so you could be elsewhere, but so appreciate you being here. When Tom asked me to participate in this, I thought, okay, all right, I'll carve that out, put some time on the calendar, and come and have a conversation with a group of folks that I think an awful lot about. But what would be the topic? And so, I thought about Tom and I pitched around some ideas, and obviously I work for a big organization, big healthcare organization. We've got all sorts of key performance indicators, and we're aligned to make for sure that we're performing those in a standardized fashion across all of the sites, the care sites where we perform clinical engineering services, HTM services. And so, yeah, we could go over some KPIs. We could talk about the creation of service level agreements, et cetera. But then I thought, Troy, you've been around the field a long time and probably going to have an audience of folks that have, there's some alignment with regard to being gray hairs and no hairs. And and good hair like Michael Brown, and so I thought, I'd like to put something together that I believe is well, it's really important to me at this point in my career, and as I work with seasoned team members, seasoned professionals in this field, I believe that this is a really important topic to have a discussion around. This is obviously specific to the HTM industry. If it wasn't, then you don't get CEUs for it. But this issue of resilience is important in life. So yeah, this is me. This is a little bit about my background. I have been in the healthcare industry for over 40 years. I like to say I'm on a plus 20 plan. I did 20 plus years in the US Navy doing this, and now I've done plus 20 years with one organization doing this. I do work for CommonSpirit Health, have the privilege, as most of the folks in here know, I serve as the Vice President for Clinical Engineering. We're an in-house program. We have more than 140 hospitals. We have more than 2,200 care locations. We take care of all of that with a team of more than 600 in-house CE team members across 24 states. We certainly, just like every clinical engineering program, whether insourced or outsourced, I mean, we have the core components of running a regulatory compliant program. So asset management, service response, preventive maintenance, all of that. But in addition to that, clinical engineering at CommonSpirit Health, we have other verticals that roll up under clinical engineering. We do have a capital planning team, and through that capital planning team, we also develop RFP management. We write contracts. We perform vendor selection on certain modalities, capital modalities, and establish standards for the acquisition of those assets across all of CommonSpirit, so that a hospital in Oregon is buying the same manufacturer, make, and model under contract for the same price on a CT, an MR, a nuke med device, whatever it might be, patient monitoring, as we're going to buy in London, Kentucky, when they have a need to purchase that type of equipment. We develop, at the time of that RFP launch, we develop our standards for our service strategies, and we're gonna accept a variety of strategies presented to us so that a large hospital in Lexington, Kentucky, with a large install base and a larger complement of service team members can perform the lowest level dependency upon an OEM, so our cost is the lowest. But that small hospital in rural Oregon may need a higher level of service dependency from a third party or an OEM. And so at the time of that RFP, we're creating that variety of strategies, everything in between. And then we have a team that we perform through our team. We give oversight to and perform medical device security, the assessment of it and the implementation of those programs. We build out through partnerships with OEMs and third parties a strategic plan for our professional development, ongoing service technician growth opportunities, planning, and professional development to put another feather in our technicians' caps, both for them personally and then obviously for the benefit of our program. All right, let's talk about the name of our industry. These should be names that we've all seen if you've been in the field for any length of time. When I first became aware of this field, it was called med repair. I was a hospital corpsman working in the ICU unit, Bethesda Naval Medical Center. And all I knew was if the infusion pump, an IMED or an IVAC 922 with a roller dial on the front of it, if that was broken and we didn't have an extra one, I called a number on the wall, med repair, and somebody delivered one. I didn't even know they were sailors, the same as me at the time. They wore a unit uniform, they had coveralls on, and I had not been issued that. I didn't know that there was such a field as this. Med repair, med maintenance, biomed, clinical engineering. Now the catchphrase is healthcare technology management, HTM, and whatever the name healthcare needs us. This is going to be a little interactive. I'm not a great conversationalist, but I do love a captive audience. And so I plugged in some green or whatever color that is, questions up here. We're limited to an hour, so I'm going to cut you off, but I would like some participation here to answer some of these questions. Why'd you get in this career field? Somebody, anybody.
This guy named Troy Scott called. He said you need to talk to the department.
Well, I wasn't anticipating that response. Anybody else? Diane. Yeah. Yep.
You don't always have good visibility. Well, today it's a lot better. We don't really this whole, different industry of supporting equipment.
Right.
And I was one of the lucky
Right. These are our stories. So today, this is a resilience discussion. What motivates you today to stay in our field? Because, I mean, there are folks in here that have competencies, background, skills, and education. You could go elsewhere. So what motivates you to stay in this field today? That's excellent. Yeah. Others? Are there experiences in your background? We swap war stories, right? Are there experiences in your background that you think back on in this career field and you think, man, that was a high water mark. I'm really proud of what either I got to do there or I got to participate with my team to do, or I'm aware of something exceptional that took place in our career field.
I would say not one particular thing, but just, the fact that at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're scratching your head trying to troubleshoot a system that's down, and by the time the staff comes in at 5 o'clock, the machine's back up again.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows. Nobody knows you were there. You're not going to get a thank you. You're not going to get a pat on the back. You know it.
It's a bit of hero complex.
A little bit, yeah.
Anybody involved in settling down administration during Y2K? Or helping implement a PACS program before anybody knew anything, before anything was networked and integrated? How about this question? Is it more difficult? Do you, as you really think about the nuts and bolts, the day in, the day out, the issues that you battle, challenges that are presented to you, is it more difficult to meet the expectations placed upon HTM today than it was as short as 7 or 8 years ago? Now, I'm going back intentionally to launch us back before COVID, a few years before COVID. I see a number of heads nodding yes, but I've heard that. What's your name, sir?
Jim.
Jim?
We got YouTube now. We can pull up the years back, finding the name was difficult.
That's really fair.
I think there's more tools now that we have today as opposed to several years ago.
Okay.
Demand grows, you find more tools and access to YouTube and things of that nature, these type of platforms. Right now, it's like everything gets newer, everything's software driven, it's harder to get in the machines to see what's really going on.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna move us forward. We're gonna talk about some challenges in HTM. I saw a number of heads nodding yes. Appreciate Jim's input, Jonathan's input there, and those are valid. Those are truths. But from the seat that I'm in today, I have a lot of conversations and much awareness of a number of challenges that are common in my organization, our organization, and in conversations with others. I know that the concerns that I'm going to present today, and some that you're going to come up with that I don't have a slide presented about, are common across all of our HTM platforms. So challenges in HTM, and these are things that I've highlighted. These factors can lead to burnout, early retirement, or as I've got up there, something that I consider to be worse, and that is somebody retiring on active duty. They're going to continue being a part of the team, but they've lost their passion and energy for this field because the things that motivated us to get into it require passion and energy. And if we're going to have the staying power to bring about effective transformational change that our healthcare system in America needs today, and we are a key driver for that as a catalyst to make improvements, we can't just mail this job in at whatever level we're in, whether it's leadership at the technician level, in a support level, as a vendor level, whether it's in-house, OEM, third party, it doesn't matter. It is our responsibility at this time, with the stewardship that's given to us, to ensure that the next generation and the generation below them, our kids and our grandkids, have access to and affordability of the advancement of medicine that we've all been privileged to receive throughout our lifetime in this country. And if we don't take this seriously, then it won't be there to hand on to those next generations. I'm firmly convinced of that, and that is what drives me to continue to do what I do. So what are some of the challenges that impact your operations? Budget, financial constrictions. We're going to touch on that. That's good. Staffing a problem for anybody? How about a shrinking or an aging workforce? There's less of us and we're getting older to do it. There's some statistics that I've got up here. I think I pulled that off of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. 7,500 open positions each year for the next decade. Many of those are due to retirement, but as you can see, we got a 13% growth in this industry versus a 5% growth in other maintenance and repair occupations. There is growth to the HTM industry. Read any of our trade magazines and that is self-evident. Where will the replacement come from? Who has a talent pipeline? I was out talking to Hobie Sears in the hall earlier, and he was discussing the change in the change in how they are acquiring talent. I mean, it was always the traditional, hey, you got to have an associate's degree in, some sort of related engineering field or military equivalent training, et cetera. Folks are looking to change that model. We in CommonSpirit have an apprenticeship program now, an internship program, and we're taking folks with less of that type of education. George was commenting earlier out there in that conversation. George, what'd you say that you look to hire? That's it. Forever, we were restricted with what we could do because they had to have the aptitude before you could ever have a conversation about the attitude. No, we know that. So I ask a question, do you have different recruitment strategies that you've got in place? Are you doing different things today to try to recruit than you did before?
I mean, I've seen clients, and this is going to sound like I'm being funny, but I mean, if you have a person in even your housekeeping department or someone in your CPG department, whatever, that has a great attitude, everybody loves them, hard working, got a good attitude, you literally walk up and say, yeah, have you ever considered doing something like this? And then you bring them in, you on-site training with them, and you pay for school too. I've seen it go really, really well. It's another way to get some diversity too, because we don't naturally, I've said, how many sessions we sat, it's like saying, your pie chart doesn't look like you look at
right.
all, men.
Yeah.
It gives you an opportunity to really tap into something. That's important for this field.
Well, listen, if you are not actively marketing our field to the person that gives you great customer service at McDonald's, the person that gives you great customer service at Best Buy or wherever it is, if you're not actively, the AT&T store, I had to swap my phone here recently, and young man, exceptional customer service, and obviously some technical capabilities about him, right? Some technical competencies. Shared with him about this career field. Had never heard of it. That's no surprise. So many people haven't. We have to be intentional about this. Look, the generations, we know they're vastly different. I come out of that boomer side, and the booms, the Gen X, career, title, job recognition, and pay. That's just been the model. We've always looked at that and patterned our careers after that. But for the millennials and the Gen Zs, it's that work-life balance. I mean, obviously we both groups care about both of these, but primarily, if you ask the questions, and people have, what bubbles up to the top, millennials and Gen Z say that flex schedule, that work that matters, that makes a difference with an emphasis on diversity inclusion is really important to them. And you better be modeling if you expect to attract some of these folks, you better be modeling your employment practices, your recruitment practices, your career development practices around some of these issues, or we're going to lose those folks to someplace else even after we've onboarded them. Any significant adjustments that anybody has made to address these issues? Yeah, right.
Understanding that there's not one technician that's going to stay at the organization 30 or years, coming in directly. So the strategy that I have is to develop that person so that they do go to another organization, that keeping it as a whole will be developed, hopefully through that circulation and that network, looking beyond the market per se, that location. That person moves to Colorado or to another state, keeping that network, those constant communication, those simple texts, checking on that person, keep that network so maybe as that even develops through his or her lifetime career, they may see an opportunity back at whatever organization they start. So not looking at they left the island, not understand the demographic. And also, as immigrants comes in as well.
Yeah.
Working them through visas and cards per se, those type of talent in as well. When I was in Texas, same thing. They had a immigrant from India, very talented person, and helped her through the process of becoming a citizen. So those unique demographics that takes us out of our industry.
And these were things that we probably didn't have to concern ourselves with earlier in our careers. So the impact of this shrinking, aging workforce, if you don't know what it is in your organization, you need to find out. Find out what it is. Have a, I mean, nobody has to share their age, but have those informal conversations amongst your team members and make for sure that you understand, hey, what are we internally talking about and thinking about from a succession planning perspective? Within CommonSpirit, in clinical engineering, that plus 600 team workforce, 42% are within a 5-year retirement window. So within that launching on the entrance of that, so that's 57 plus to get to 62 or beyond, 42%.
Hey, Troy, do you have, within your organization or what you've seen in the industry, is there a target age where, like, let's say I want to go past 65, I want to stay on board. Is there ever a limit to say, hey, you've done your time, we're proud of you?
No, man, we'll make for sure that they're hooked up with the American with Disabilities Act if they have to come in a wheelchair, as long as they continue to do the competent, perform the duties. A second challenge that, I'm sorry. There you go. Dan, I'll drive this slide to what you were talking about earlier. Connected medical devices and cyber workload. Can you believe this?
No, yeah.
It's been 20 years.
I think like people still trying to get this for 20 years.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
It wasn't terribly long ago. I remember calling a manufacturer and they still wanted to give me the MSDS. And I don't even think that's the right term for it today. But yeah, and I mean, it's exploded, right? The things that we are connecting to the network today. So you get it connected because somebody needs it connected. And then there's the whole concern with the cyber oversight, the medical device security oversight of it. I've listed a number of device types that we've got integrated onto our networks, and I certainly haven't listed them all. And I haven't listed them all because they estimate through 2030 another 15 to 20% modality types to be connected to, whether it's PACS, CPACS, the EMR, whatever the list system. 15 to 20% more device types that are not connected today, but are being developed so that they can be integrated onto our healthcare networks. As a result, the workload has drastically increased. And here are some staffing models that can be pulled from a number of industry recommendations. 1 FTE per 1,500 beds because they estimate X number of connected medical devices per bed. That's how you get to it. 1 to 12,000 network devices. Add another FTE. Listen, depending upon your organization size, that's another 10% or better of your staffing complement. And how are you folks addressing it? Because in some organizations, it's not being addressed. In some organizations, CE raises the white flag and says, I can't do this. IT picks it up, or it's outsourced to some other party. I know how CommonSpirit's addressing this. If there are others in the room here, how are you addressing this? Or do you know how cyber medical device security is being addressed? Okay, I'll take that as a to-do then for those of you that did not respond. Find out how that is being addressed today. Who gives oversight?
I think it's really an oversight framework. It's like every department kind of does their own, you got network physical, integration, network logic, and they're all doing their own piece, kind of almost separately. I don't see them working together as a group to make an overall.
David, Sean, what would you say to that? Siloing is a bad problem.
Front IT likes silo responsibility and only communicate when that happens.
All right, I'm gonna pull this back in because I gotta drive this. This is one of a few challenges that has been presented to us as an industry that can be a really difficult head banging against the wall type of challenge that requires us to develop resilience to be able to stay in this field. A third, aged inventory. I think this is a picture of an AMX2. I know that's a picture of a LifePak 5. Both of those are examples of the first type of imaging and biomed equipment. In fact, this was my first job. I was working OJT at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, back in the early 80s. And I was charged with replacing out the wiring harness on the inside of about 100 of these things. And it was challenging. So anyway, we got an aged inventory. I pulled this off of some publication, oncologysystems.com. It's not important necessarily the modalities. What is important to see is that just in a very short period of time, inventory of our equipment continues to age. Scott Skinner was talking earlier in a presentation about capital and talking about the fact that, you know, I mean, he works for a company that engages lots of healthcare systems, and nearly without exception, everyone is in the same boat. There's slim margin and not a tremendous amount of capital to replace medical equipment. So that presents a problem. That presents a problem for us as HTM professionals. There's a bunch of influencers to the reality of us having to deal with an aged inventory, the declining wrong mix of volume, stagnant reimbursement, inflation. All of it results in HTM departments and professionals having to support equipment, whether it's big iron or whether it's biomed equipment, big iron imaging or biomed equipment, far past its manufacturer end of guaranteed support dates. That middle paragraph talks about a dramatically increased recall frequency. And if you work in an organization where you have to deal with equipment recalls, I'm confident that you've seen the increase of awareness of recall alerts that you as a department or you as a technician have to respond to 24/7. Back, I forget, it was April, May, June. One of their publications earlier this summer noted a 14% increase in the recalls in Q1 of 24 versus the previous quarter. Yet, and this is interesting, a 51% decrease in defective units. Regulatory agencies have put such a bullseye on manufacturers that those recall frequencies have blown up, and they are alerting us to the potential problem. You know, you read down, no sentinel events, no significant events have been noted worldwide, yet they have to alert God and country about these issues. 51% decrease in defective units. Earlier in my career, it was when you got a recall, there was something to be taken care of immediately because there was a real problem associated with that device. Less need to do anything today other than the management of the recall through your CMMS system to record the fact that you got it, you took a look, you closed the work order with no need for any response. Listen, you want to frustrate a bunch of HTM professionals? Give them double work. There you go. This is it. I mean, this is a challenge that requires us to develop resilience. So what are the additional issues of dealing with an aged inventory? Pressure for part sourcing. OEM said, hey, I'm not selling you parts on that anymore. No longer supporting it. And then that means we're all vying for that same set of aftermarket used parts from the same group of vendors that provide them. Pressure for technical competencies. You got old equipment. There's few people left that know how to work on older imaging equipment. That's why you're pulling guys like, well, I won't mention names, out of guys and gals. And here you go, Daniel. Pressure for device integration and the stakeholders' expectation of CE. I've got this piece of equipment. I know that it acquires an image. It acquires some sort of diagnostic information off of a patient, and I want it into my electronic system. And I need you to do it. Hey, some of this gear was never designed to work with the high-speed network infrastructure that we've got today. Yet, there are those that we have to interact with that don't understand that. They just know the pressure to have that information integrated because the physicians that they're working with have only ever lived with an EMR. So we need help. We need help. I worked years ago with a really outgoing, gregarious technician. His name was, we called him Willie D. And when a difficult service call came in, if nobody else would take it, Willie D would always take it. We'd come back to the shop and he would spin a golden screwdriver and stick it down in his pocket because Willie D managed it. We need a golden screwdriver today, folks, and I call it resilience. And here's my definition of resilience. This is what I believe we have to have hard-headedness to continue the mission, and not just to continue and get it done, but to continue it with excellence, and to do that through the successes that you're going to experience in it and the failures as well. Don't give up. Healthcare needs us. We can't give it up. Will talent, skills, and abilities see us through all of these challenges that I've mentioned and the other ones that you had in your mind that haven't been mentioned or that were? Where have we turned in your department when the workload is really heavy and the challenge is a difficult one? Where have you as a leader or your boss as a leader, where have they turned to get the issue resolved? I'm going to say again, each other. I'm going to suggest to you that we turn to the hot runner, the person or persons that you know they always deliver. I'm going to keep giving them because they always deliver. 80% of the work done by 20% of the team. Should not be, is a reality. And when senior administration says, hey, got to get this done, you as a team member, you're going to turn to other team members that you know, hey, they're going to get in the yoke with me and they're going to work hard and pull until we get this done, whether it's till 5 o'clock in the morning so that when the early risers come in, the early team members in imaging come in at 6:30, getting ready for their 7:30 patients, they're ready to do their daily quals on that and they're good. Talented people are often a gift to the world, but the absence of strong character will topple the gift. Character protects the gift. This is a John Maxwell statement. 20% of the team talented. You keep throwing things at people, it's difficult to maintain character. Crises define one's character and resilience is built in them. Resilience is required to turn difficulties into opportunities. And I've just presented the tip of the spear, 3 challenges that are true challenges, difficulties for our industry. All right, let's, so I launched this discussion at a high note. I've brought it down as we've touched on the difficulties that we face. Now I want to build this up, okay? Resilience requires courage, and I'm going to talk about 3 aspects of this type of courage. The first is mental courage, overcoming the fear of intellectual honesty. Listen, Scott, and I bounced around to all 3 presentations at the 8 o'clock, and each person that I heard speaking spoke in two approaches. One, they spoke in technical approach, which is a language that we all understand, but then they also inserted in their presentation how, or at least attempted to insert how it is that we as subject matter experts, as HTM professionals, need to engage those on the outside of our career field, but who need to understand from our subject matter expertise, what are the realities of the challenges that we face and how that impacts their local, either local, market, regional, or organizational operations. And to do that, it requires courageous conversations. I need to take what I know technically as a subject matter expert, and I'm going to have to wrestle with my mind a little bit and make for sure that I'm not explaining, the nuts and bolts of the issue, but rather present that in a fashion that the big picture is presented to someone in administration or leadership. If I do not do that, as I consider the challenges, aging inventory, aging workforce, the cyber readiness, if I'm not open and honest, if I leave that stuff unaddressed, if I can't change that with my mental courage into talking points that translate for others to understand, it might lead to sacrifice because they're not being addressed. And that can lead to sacrifice of quality, regulatory compliance, patient safety, and a decrease in our team member engagement or culture because nothing's being done about these challenges that are present for us as a department. We have to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. And for time's sake, I'm going to ask this question a couple of times, so I'm going to move on, but think on that. Do you have examples of having these very difficult, courageous, but candid conversations about the reality of what's going on in your HTM sphere of influence, department, organization, and others that are on the outside but that are decision makers to help you overcome some of those challenges? And you can insert the answer to that question at any of these. A third or a second type of courage, emotional courage, it's overcoming the fear of failure. It allows you to get through the criticism, the rejection potentially, and the weariness of having to fight through that challenge once again. Because nobody wins these battles of, hey, I got an aging, shrinking workforce, and so I've got to add staff. Anybody get through that one the very first time and somebody listened to you and said, well, great, just add X number of team members to your group? That is not my experience. It keeps us in check when our personal or our department's reputation suffers or risks criticism. Have you been in a situation where a regulatory survey came around and not your department's fault, maybe end users were not performing daily checks on a crash cart or some medical device, yet it somehow falls underneath of clinical engineering as a regulatory finding? Yeah, or HTM department as a regulatory finding. Emotional courage will keep you in that battle because someone else is criticizing your efforts. It fuels the passion to compete for resources in an increasingly shrinking CapEx and OpEx pool of resources. So I've touched on a couple of topics of this type of courage that resilience needs to have developed. Are there any examples where you've had to engage in some of these courageous, difficult conversations that you want to pipe up about?
We are responsible for checking the maturity. When you go to the survey,
And if you don't have enough stick-to-itiveness or resilience about you, then it just goes unaddressed. And that's not okay. A third type of courage for resilience, relational courage. It's candid, authentic conversations. And you boil this down, I do believe in my conversations with others, for some, it is the hardest of all. We have to self-disclose. It's giving someone else a peek behind the curtain of what is HTM. I spent this past week in a summit out in Denver, Colorado with our national IT leaders, and I got a little peek behind their curtain, and boy, it was eye-opening. 13 verticals within our national IT program, and they do not speak well in all regards across all those verticals, but they gave me and some others that engage with them as a collaborative interdepartmental dependencies. They gave us opportunity to witness that, to participate in their troubleshooting, their brainstorming sessions to try to improve that, and it was helpful. But that's what relational courage is. To really know ourselves and our programs is to be known by others and to see it from their perspective. So how would you answer this question? Are there departments or individuals that know your program better today as a result of an issue that you've had to let them know, hey, look, we're not perfect here, and we've got challenges here, and here's what I need? Any examples of those?
Some of my clients, I'm primarily dealing with in-house folks. And, anytime they have an administrative change, a lot of times, the first reaction is, where does this guy come from? And what's his experience in outsourcing experience? So a lot of my clients are worried about outsourcing it. And what I'm trying to encourage them to do is to, give them information. Vacuum is never a good situation. Give them information, feed them information, like you were saying, works and all. Because certainly they've been in places where they've seen, difficulties in any particular environment. So I just think, I just don't want there to be a back between you and whoever.
It's terrific. These are the 3 types of courage we talked about. They're required. Questions for yourself, self-reflection. Which of these am I best prepared to handle? Which of these am I most likely to avoid? What are my resources for overcoming them? I love this quote by Winston Churchill. Give you a second to digest that. For those in the audience, it reads, failure is seldom fatal. Success is seldom final. It is courage that counts. That's a guy that certainly understood what that was all about. Well, not only does resilience require courage, it requires vision. My definition, as I looked at lots of input on this, it's a clarity of focus on a future end state that moves human resources toward the goal with drive and perseverance. From my perspective, that's a good definition. A foundation to that successful vision is grounded in wisdom. Wisdom, Hebrew term for wisdom, the idea behind it is success in living. It's having the right next answer to the issue of life presented to all of us. Vision must have a clearly defined end state. I don't know who to attribute that next statement to, but I heard it a long time ago and I really like it. To be unclear is to be unkind. If I'm in a position where I am to communicate something that I need from you or to pass on something to you, if I can't do that clearly, then I've been unkind towards you. I'm a faith-driven guy, so here's a couple of Old Testament principles that help guide me to try to improve my my approach to being clear. Teach us to count our days that we may gain a wise heart. Listen, I want to maximize my time, and I want to focus on the position I'm in is one of a lot of speaking. I don't get to work on a piece of equipment anymore. I don't have a toolbox, and so take advantage of the time that I've been given to develop a wiser heart. From a wise mind, then, the central part of a person, a wise heart, a wise mind, comes wise speech. The words of the wise are persuasive, and this then is what drives the ability to communicate a clear vision. Vision must be large enough, communicated well enough to capture the attention and the enthusiasm of those that you've enlisted to achieve it. Good grief. Our agendas, our to-do list, our calendars. I mean, I'm triple booked for most things next week. And so it's just going to be a matter of which one is the priority at the time. People get tired and without a compelling vision, lose resilience. That's just the truth of the matter. Vision, though, has to be resourced. Listen, this is a true statement from the Old Testament. Where there's no vision, the people perish. Okay, great. I want the best products and the best services. That's the vision for, this example. But with only a vision, end states are never accomplished. You got to resource all of this. You got to have processes in place in order to get to that vision, desired outcome. And that's where that mental, emotional, and relational courage comes in, because I'm going to have to fight for these resources in order to support that vision. Resilience requires self-care. There's buzzword out here today, been out for more than a decade, I guess, emotional intelligence. And, you see it in its abbreviated form as EQ. Emotional intelligence, our self-awareness in so many areas about ourselves. Know your capacity and don't ignore it. Don't try to overestimate. I mean, you know you better than anybody. You know you and your capacities for anything better than anyone. Now, kind of like residual volume in our lungs, there's typically a little more than what we're willing to let others in on. But know your capacity, don't ignore it. But it is a true statement that we've got a finite reservoir of all of these things. None of us is infinite. So know your capacity for each of these and so many other areas of life, the courage, the vision casting, your ability to invest in others. What are the barriers? This is resilience requires self-care. Okay, that's the topic here. What are the barriers to taking care of ourselves?
You just said overbook.
Time management, absolute necessities, lack of resources. If you are and this will translate, if you're a people leader, what's a barrier to you for taking care of yourself? If you're a people leader, if you have a team that you're responsible for. Right, that flows right back into all of what was said earlier, but it's the summation of those issues. It's a high degree of responsibility. The same is true as a technician. You've got responsibility for departments and clinical end users that have expectations and needs from you because they got a backlog of patients they got to deal with. You've got a high degree of responsibility to meet their needs.
I'm a neuroscience educator, and there is a great barrier that technical people like HTMs suffer from, and it has to do with how we learn. Technical people learn with different parts of their brain. It's like strengthening muscle. So we have to communicate things and have emotional intelligence. We don't have that as technical people without it being built through neuroplasticity. That's where when you talk about leadership, development, things like that come into play, help us do better, provide better service. But it's called reciprocal inhibition. It's like lifting a weight with one arm all the time. The other arm doesn't get strong. Well, as technical people, that's what we've been doing our entire careers. So our emotional part of the brain isn't being strengthened. That's a barrier.
So John, the next HTM mixer somewhere, you need to take a topic on that and present. So like, I flew this week. I'm sure, many in here probably did or have recently. The barriers taking care of ourselves. I summarized it with responsibility. The impact to others on our team, others that I need to service is great. But look, we got to look at this like they do the start of every airplane flight that you get on. When that mask drops, where does it go first? You, because you can't take care of others. And man, that runs so counter to everything that we in a service industry, it's not part of our DNA. It's not how we are wired. Multitasking. Like, it's revered today and it's often mistaken as productivity. Just because I'm triple booked doesn't mean I won't accomplish it all. It's ridiculous. Stress and burnout are real. They have to be prevented. Worst case scenarios related to stress and burnout. What's a worst case scenario for stress? Somebody dies. Worst case scenario for burnout, might not kill you, but it'll impact your mental health to the point that you wish you weren't alive. Stress can kill you. These are bad outcomes. Resilience requires self-care. So, where's your needle today? I mean, truthfully, throw it out there. Are you full? Are you half tank? Are you 3/4? Are you quarter tank? Or are you empty? That's excellent. This kind of interaction charges me. Now this last night when I got back in, well, I was pretty depleted. But this charges me interacting with HTM professionals to this level. But really consider that, and obviously it fluctuates, and so because it fluctuates, just like a gas tank in our car, we got to do something about it, right? We got to work on this self-care, this replenishment support, set boundaries. This has nothing to do, well, it's driven for me from a faith perspective, but it has nothing to do with faith. It's just a matter of the reality of our capacities. Practice a day of rest. Get completely unplugged from your vocational duties, unless you're on call and you are required, but don't make that the routine of every week, I'm the on-call person. Figure out a way to get unplugged. And the sky better be falling bad before you're going to take the phone call. Develop a workday ending practice. Listen, as a result of COVID, I now work from home, and I didn't do that forever. I had a better practice for a normal workday ending practice previously. Today, I don't have a good practice. I mean, I have one that I try to implement, but we're across 24 states, and so that's 3 time zones, and that's difficult. We probably don't have time to go into it, but talk about if this is an issue for you, and especially if you're a remote worker, share with others. What is your practice to develop a end of day? Identify ways to lower your surrounding noise. I believe that this is absolutely something within our control, and I think that we do a poor job of it. Evaluate your to-do list and ensure that appropriate delegation is in place. Do not assume other departments' roles. Doing so creates avoidable noise. Ensure that folks that you're interacting with, departments you're interacting with, are working up to the level of their responsibilities, and don't just step in and assume it. I'm not saying don't help someone out. I'm saying don't own for long term someone else's licensed level of responsibilities. Hold people accountable to working at their level. Exercise body and mind. Create calendar events for rounding. If you're, if you're responsible for interacting with departments and you don't round, shame on you. Create a calendar event for rounding, gym time, walk time, any sort of fresh air time. Get out of your department, out of your space, and get out and amongst others. And then if you are already doing that routinely, because that's a part of your work day expectations, get outside, get some fresh air. Meditation. Who has not been on their phone this morning and consumed some news feed, sports feed, social media feed of some sort? Has anybody not accessed? A few. We consume a ton of information, just blast it at us. But do we ever really take time to, I want to process that. I want to think on that. I want to see how garbage in, garbage out. What do I need to chuck? What do I need to take and work on? Use it. make better the sphere of influence that I'm involved in, whatever that sphere of influence is. Create margin in your day for proper sleep. Steve said he finally just got it. Listen, I mean, these are basic fundamental things, but the further you get in your career, the less that you give attention to things like this, because the volume of expectations is great. Spiritual development, we're more than external. Do you have any other helpful input to this self-care list I've got here? And we've got 5 minutes and I got to bring it to a close.
Schedule sleep. The ultimate thing you're talking about is scheduling the time for yourself. Not setting up work.
Yeah. Yep.
Tough to do.
It is tough to do.
One of the counterintuitive things about us in our engineering mind, things we talk about like that, is the need for hope. It's in our DNA to fix stuff. And that goes beyond this piece of equipment, right? You want to fix the situation as well. This person has a problem. You're drawn to that as a caring, hopeful person. It's just, I'll be honest and transparent. My struggle is walking that line.
Yeah.
Somebody, a hallway requisition, we used to call it. You're in the middle of 10 things, and somebody stops you in the hallway, you're getting ready to walk the 5-minute job. Oh, we have a XYZ upstairs, it's not working. What do you do with that information? Do you say, I'm sorry, I just can't do it this time? No. They relied on you 12 other times.
And
This time you say no.
99 out of 100 times we say yes.
We do.
But we kill ourselves over the time that we have to say no. We just die 1,000 deaths.
Used to be encouraged that you work past your normal quitting time.
Yep.
That was a good thing.
Yeah.
That was a good guy. You put in extra effort. Now, I think we're reading that back. We're saying, you need to get out of here.
I got a summary slide here. So we did talk about these 3 areas of courage: mental, emotional, and relational. Some high level view of what's involved in each of those. Vision has to be clearly defined. It has to be resourced, and resilience requires self-care. And here are a few of the summary statements about that. Set your boundaries, lower your noise, prioritize margin to take care of yourself in these 3 aspects and others that some of you thought about. So whatever your department title is, and CommonSpirit still calls us, we're still clinical engineering, so we haven't made the shift. Whatever that department title is, healthcare needs us. HTM professionals, I would encourage you to summarize, go back to just these 2 questions. Why did I become an HTM member? Think back on what was the catalyst, what was the catch, and then when you're facing these concerns of resilience and struggling against that or struggling with that, remember what really motivates you to stay in the field. Why are you here? And it needs to be more than just a paycheck and retirement in another 2 years.